So one of my biggest fears when it comes to playing games such as like these, of course, because everything is orientated around power creep. With these type of games, unfortunately, things don't tend to stay the same as time goes on. For example, with right now, Ichigo is he's an amazing character, right? I still have yet to do my video talking about Ichigo and Toshiro. I was actually supposed to do it today, but I might just do it tomorrow, right? Because I've already got my verdict. I know how I feel about it. I need to just kind of buff up Ichigo just a little bit more, and then we are going to be good to go. And I'll speak the truth on between the two DPS boys, of course. Now, with all that being said, as I've mentioned, with Ichigo releasing, specifically, obviously the one that we're utilizing now, unfortunately, there's going to come a time where there's going to be a bit of a shift, right? That's how these games work, right? It's that power creep. Eventually, characters will lose their value, and then the dreaded, as I like to say, limit breaking and all that shenanigans begins. And to me, look, don't get me wrong, I love it when they bring back old characters to the power creep of the present, right? Dope. But my goodness, is it an absolute pain in the ass. Now, with that being said, where am I going with all of this? Well, in the files, I believe this was actually even beforehand. But I was praying and hoping that it was going to be spoken about, and maybe this wasn't the case. And thankfully, we've got a little bit of confirmation on what's going on, and I guess more so of a breathing room. But deep down, I truly do know that at some point it's going to get to that it's going to get to that stage where eventually the power creep will then involve some form of increase of a character's rarity, that is. Right, there's nothing here. Alright, let me get out of this. There we go. And what do I mean by that? Well, as we all know, in the game it goes up to SSRs, right? Obviously when it comes to gear stamps and all that stuff, for the most part it goes up to 6 stars, right? It doesn't surpass that. And I believe that should technically stay the same. I don't want it to surpass that. That's going to be annoying if that is the case, right? It already costs a lot for gears to go into the 5-star, sorry, the 6-star mark. Now, as I've mentioned, but it's the character's rarity that caught my attention. So whilst this is just kind of running in the background, if I hop over here, so again, this UR was previously found, but I just kind of pushed it to the side, being like, please God, no, don't do this to us. Mass kind of brought it back to everyone's attention, and League Gacha informed us that the rarity was in the alpha accompanied by another rarity, but we're not even sure if they're really going to release them for Vasto Lord Ichigo, even though they haven't modified his weapon since the alpha. Damn, so that means the CM players who signed the NDA were the only ones to play him, I'm pretty sure. They have modified the characters who has become an SSR and not a UR. So I don't, because of course I did play the alpha, and I actually don't recall that UR. I ever went back on some of my old alpha footage. I'm just like, okay, is there anywhere that shows some form of indication of a UI? I couldn't find anything, so I'm just like, where was it? So if it's in, if it was used originally within the alpha, then obviously the developers have some form of idea on bringing it in, and it could be one of two ways, right? They can either bring it in as an awakening form for the SSRs, right, to make them even stronger, or, and this is the one that I'm really praying for, is when they release new hype characters, then obviously they will have their own, like, for example, unique characters in terms of kind of being like festival characters, right? Like special characters. So if they ever do introduce URs, then in my eyes, it's got to be in the line of it being like a half anniversary or like big celebration moment characters, of course. So as we know of the leaks that were showing certain characters, I think when it comes to introducing the so-called new rarity, it falls in line for characters like Vasto Lord, Ichigo, Yukihiro, of course. So those are like the characters, the big boy characters, as I like to say. I mean, technically speaking, I mean, you could even say Aizen, but stages of Aizen, so there's, we'll get there if it is added in at a later time, or if they choose to utilize it. If not, I will not be opposed. But again, that was kind of like my dreaded moment of seeing that, being like, no, future content that requires more powering up, and obviously it's already an absolute ball ache already when it comes to leveling up characters and working on them, especially once you get to the stage where, because obviously right now I can get my characters to level 80, and oh my goodness, the amount of resources that you have to spend for that is ridiculous. So like in terms of them being like, alright, you can get an SSR character to UR, it's just like, bruh, are you kidding me? And of course, in order for that to happen, it will require, I assume, for that character to be max level. So like account level wise, you got to be up to like what, 70, 80, probably, you know, you got to get to level 100, right? That's the max amount, so the account level has to be up there too, so that's going to be a pain. Yeah, with all that being said, I truly do believe that since it was kind of snuck in during the alpha days, the idea is there for sure. 100% the idea is there. This is definitely a power creep, which, I mean, I would say more than likely that will be turned to, but I am hoping and I'm praying that it's going to be in the form of giving it to a brand new character, again, in the form of like a festivity, like anniversary time or anything like that, or a hype character. Because again, in terms of where you know, when it comes to Bleach itself, you know, we're right at the beginning, boys. You know, there's a lot to come. There is a lot to come, and so this is definitely a power creep moment for, I would say, maybe even anniversary time, you know? I just do not want it to be an additional power-up mechanic for the game, to where, hey, these SSR characters that we gave you, yeah, you can get the UR now. What are the requirements? This resources, this amount of gold, max level, like, that is a killer. That is an absolute killer. So, look, I'm all for limit breaking old characters in the future, maybe in some way or form. I'm cool with that. So, hey, we'll figure that out. But in terms of, you know, doing a new Rarity, that has to be in a form, in my opinion, as a hype moment, and hype with some extremely exciting characters, you know. So it looks like to me that they were trying to feel it out to be like, is this something that they can introduce early on? But I think it's wise to hold off and introduce it at a very much later time. If they actually introduce it during the half-year anniversary, I'll be very surprised. I'll be very surprised. I would have yeah, I really hope it's for like at least like the first anniversary. But again, there's one of two ways in how they can introduce it. I'm just hoping they go down the route of giving it to a newer character rather than using it as a limit break format. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, it's already been tried in the game early on. Things didn't work out, but they're holding off from it. But it's still there. It is still an idea that can quite comfortably that could be introduced into the game as a power creep, and again, I don't think they will shy away from it.